It was a conspiracy hiding in plain sight. That's me, shopping for this burning Godzilla figure from the classic flick Godzilla vs. Destroyer. For my 3-year-old kid, obviously. I saw that Amazon had it for $26.98. Then I checked Walmart just to make sure I was getting the best deal. $26.98, the same oddly specific price. Huh. A few weeks later, the same toy suddenly cost $27.99 at Amazon, $27.99 at Walmart, and $27.99 at GameStop. Matching low prices, moving in tandem. Something was off. You wouldn't see this kind of thing in brick and mortar retail stores. They always try to outdo one another. So I decided to keep shopping, as research. Soon I was finding strange, correlating prices everywhere. This pack of toilet paper, $8.44 at Amazon, Walmart, and a few other stores. A few weeks later, it's $8.96 in all locations. The soccer goal for kiddos, $24.97 across the board. Weird numbers, probably no accident. And it turns out it wasn't. So I did some digging and found myself staring down what appears to be an intricate scheme to rig the economy, raid your wallet, and squeeze small businesses. And who's behind it? Amazon.
There has never been a company as powerful as Amazon.
You're offering the lowest price, and it is the lowest price, but what people don't know, it would be lower if you weren't doing what you're doing. It's pure coercion.
You rarely see it this explicitly. This is smoking gun stuff.
Amazon completely dominates online shopping in the US and much of the world, with an image built on affordability and convenience. But accusations are growing that what feels like cost savings is actually the opposite, and they're doing it all with this one simple trick.
We are going to take those orders and we are going to pack them in bubble mailers to cardboard boxes so we can get those products safely to you.
Molson Hart makes educational toys through his company Viahart. He's been selling on Amazon since 2014, and he runs his business in part out of his warehouse in Texas.
This is our best-selling product, Brain Flakes. They're interlocking plastic discs which teach kids dexterity and spatial thinking, and you can make some really cool designs.
I reached out to Hart because he's no middleman. He invents and designs his products, arranges their manufacturing, and then he distributes them.
These are many of our Tiger Heart stuffed animals, and some of our designs, I think, are the best in the world. So this is the world's best armadillo plush.
You'd think that owning the entire process from conception to naming to wrapping the thing, it would mean that he determines the pricing, right?
So one time, Brain Flakes, which is our bestseller, got suspended for having a lower price on the Target marketplace.
At the time, Molson was selling Brain Flakes at Target for $19.98. The price listed on Amazon, $19.99. A 1-cent discrepancy that set off a rush to avoid financial disaster.
You're scrambling with your team, you're on Slack, you're shooting emails, you're making calls, you're doing everything you can to get back up. It's horrible, it's a horrible experience.
This is a standard occurrence with Amazon. The company's schemes to have the lowest prices have been known under various names, price parity policy, fair market price guarantee among them, but it all boils down to a few basic alleged principles. First, it's what we call third-party coercion.
What Amazon does is it reviews and scans and surveys all the other platforms besides Amazon, like Walmart's platform, Target's online platform.
That's Rob Bonta, Attorney General of California, who has spent years investigating Amazon. And please note, the following are my words, not his. Think Amazon's pricing algorithms as Skynet, the all-seeing AI in the Terminator movies. When it sees competition, it takes action to, well, terminate it.
They flag it when the price for a product on Amazon is lower on another platform like Target or Walmart. And then they encourage the wholesaler to raise the price to match Amazon's price so that there is not a lower price out in the market that's lower than Amazon's.
Okay, so that raises a few questions. Primarily, what does encourage mean? Here's where the aforementioned smoking gun comes in the form of emails discovered during Bonta's investigation.
Amazon saw that Levi's khakis were being provided on Walmart's online platform at a lower price than on Amazon. Amazon was selling it at $29.99, and on Walmart it was a little over $25 to $26.99. Amazon flagged that for Levi's and said, we need to get this resolved. They use words like that. This needs to be resolved. Levi's worked with Walmart and got the price raised so that it was the higher price of $29.99 instead of having a lower price.
So what does Amazon do to these vendors that spook them so much? The punishment at the center of the lawsuits involves Amazon cutting off access to what's known as the buy box. You know, that box on the right with the add to cart and buy now buttons?
That's a special feature that exists on Amazon's platform where tons of sales are made. It's basically the recommended item when there's multiple choices.
You could make the argument that these little yellow and orange buttons are the most powerful tool on the internet. Essentially, Amazon is designed so that if you don't have the buy box on an item, it's almost impossible for anyone to add your stuff to their cart.
If you lose the buy box on a best-selling product, that can mean not being profitable that month or even that year.
One vendor shared with us that they lost 80% of their sales when they were taken out of the buy box.
A merchant knows that getting disqualified from the buy box is kiss of death.
Steve Berman led the biggest antitrust settlement in US history and has a number of active suits against Amazon.
So when Amazon says, if you don't change your price, you're out, they change their price.
So why not just say screw it and take a hike, walk away from Amazon? Well, to quote the marketing campaign for the infamous 1998 American Godzilla movie, size matters.
They are so dominant, they capture 70% of sales and more than 2/3 of major product categories.
This is Stacy Mitchell, a researcher and author of the book Big Box Swindle.
It controls the infrastructure that the modern economy runs on.
All told, Amazon owned about 4 out of every $10 spent online last year. Around half of Americans have Prime accounts, and in 2024, a poll found that about 3/4 of Americans had bought something on Amazon over the preceding year. So the obvious move would be to just lower prices on Amazon instead of raising them elsewhere, right?
You can't, because it's more expensive to sell on Amazon than it is off Amazon almost all the time. So if you lower the price on Amazon to what it is off Amazon, you end up losing money on Amazon.
That's a phenomenon that can be explained by another alleged Amazon special. Let's call them captive vendor fees.
10 years ago, sellers were paying on average in the US about a 20% cut. So every dollar in sales, they gave 20 cents to Amazon. Today, that's up to 50%. Half of every sale right off the top going to Amazon.
When I first started selling on Amazon, there was just what you called a fulfillment fee. And they took 15% of the price of the product. Today, there are fees for reviews, fees for advertising, long-term storage fees, aged inventory fees. You have, we don't have enough stock in our warehouses fees.
In a competitive market, a truly competitive market, what would happen is that you would, as a seller, you would raise your prices on Amazon to absorb those fees, and you would have lower prices on cheaper platforms. And consumers would see those high prices on Amazon and they would start to shop on other platforms, and we began to get a more competitive marketplace. Amazon would feel that competitive pressure and maybe they would lower their fees so that you could lower your prices. That doesn't happen.
Amazon doesn't just track prices of competitors like Walmart and Target. At this point, we've been told by sellers that a lower listing anywhere could trigger punishment.
One day, I was looking at our BrainFlakes pirate ship and it just said high price on it. What is this? This is obviously killing sales. Imagine you go into a store and then the store representative says something like, okay, well, you can buy this, but just warning you now, the price at this location is really high and you might be able to find a lower price somewhere else. And so our sales cratered. We scoured the internet. Was it Walmart? Is it Target? Is it Temu? Is it eBay? How is this happening?
As it turns out, none of the above. The product got dinged for being cheaper on Viaheart's own website, something that hadn't happened before.
So what we did in the wake of learning about that is we just raised all the prices on our website, despite having way lower costs on our website, and we don't need the prices to be that high there.
But what about the 12 million or so Amazon products that the company sells directly? It figures that Amazon isn't going to punish itself for having a higher price than other websites, right? Turns out the same principles apply, and there are a few approaches, all of which still shift the risk to the supplier. In fact, in some cases, Amazon actually guarantees itself a certain level of profit.
If it discovers that a supplier's product is sold for less on another site, and Amazon then has to lower its own price to meet that lower price, it then goes back to the supplier and says, okay, I had to lose margin. You're now going to write me a check to ensure that I make my minimum margin. And so suppliers have to write Amazon a check to make up for that difference. And what suppliers, of course, figure out is they don't want to write Amazon checks. The better way from their point of view to go is to force those other retailers to keep their prices high.
Now, let's be clear. Amazon does sometimes lower prices itself, but that's really only in service of raising them down the line. And this is what's known as algorithmic coercion. Another one of Amazon's alleged tactics to inflate market prices. It's when Skynet really kicks in.
Amazon is monitoring prices across the web, and if it detects that another retailer lowers its price, it immediately matches that price. So what these other retailers' algorithms learn is they are never gonna win any more customers by lowering their prices. And what they do instead is decide, well, if I can't win any more customers, I might as well raise my prices and at least I'll make more profit margin on every sale that I do make. And what then happens is that Amazon sees that price rise and it matches the price hike. And over time, we start to see prices across the online market are being inflated because of Amazon's pricing algorithm.
The math is ugly. Data analytics firm SmartScout found that inflation on Amazon outpaced national inflation since 2022, and inflation hasn't exactly been low.
We're talking about a cumulative overcharge in the tens of billions of dollars, more than that.
Amazon's price fixing is at the center of a whole bunch of major lawsuits, including one from the Federal Trade Commission and one from the state of California. Berman, meanwhile, is the lead counsel in a class action lawsuit against Amazon for this stuff. It could be the largest class action lawsuit in American history, worth tens of billions of dollars. Amazon has been fighting the lawsuits tooth and nail, but especially for independent businesses, it does feel like the fix is in.
These are just small vendors, mom and pops, somebody with an idea, somebody with a product, somebody with a dream of starting a business who need a place to meet consumers. They can't reach the market unless they're on Amazon.
Is there a free market? It's a lot of like these large, powerful corporations making bad decisions for the entire marketplace, arguing that it's a free market. But in reality, the sellers and the small businesses that sell on those corporations, through those corporations, don't have the ability to set their own prices. So in that way, it's not really a free market.
Opinions vary on what should be done about all this should Amazon be found guilty in one or more of these lawsuits. But it's not an unprecedented situation. Back in 2020, the European Union began an investigation into how Amazon distributed the buy box. In 2022, Amazon agreed to treat all sellers on the continent the same when it comes to doling out those precious buttons. But as one executive wrote in an email that got unearthed for Berman's lawsuit, the expectations have not changed for US sellers.
I know Amazon makes claims that they've shifted. If Amazon has discontinued the unlawful conduct, then they should have no problem agreeing to a preliminary injunction. But they're opposing our motion for a preliminary injunction.
So, if Amazon is found guilty, it's going to take more than promises to get it to stop driving up prices.
We can seek civil penalties. We want them to disgorge their ill-gotten gains from this unlawful practice where they padded their profits by breaking the law.
I think that there needs to be a court order stopping these practices, and there needs to be a period of time where the court oversees Amazon's conduct.
We could also potentially see a breakup of the company. That would mean basically restructuring Amazon into multiple companies.
Our goal with our educational products is not just to make money. Our goal is actually to put them in as many children and in some cases adults' hands as possible because we want to have a big positive impact. Amazon generates massive amounts of money, and so there needs to be a better sense of when enough is enough.
In the end, I didn't wind up buying the Godzilla toy at all. Turns out, the kid changed his mind and he wanted this King Ghidorah statue right here. It was 1807 at Amazon and 1807 at Walmart. Thanks for watching. Let us know what kind of stories you want to see in the comments. Remember to join our new membership program and don't forget to like and subscribe.